Good morning, everybody. Welcome to hour two of Hawk Blogger Mornings, episode 213. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And man, this is my favorite time. We only get it every other week, but I don't say, I say only, and that sounds wrong. I cherish these minutes, these hours that we get with Big Ray Roberts on Big Ray's Rewind every other Wednesday to talk all things Seahawks. This is a guy that I had a player card of him on my door, growing up. I remember when he was drafted by the Seahawks. I had him probably next to Tommy Kane's card and Brian
Tommy
Blades.
Kane.
Brian Blades, and I don't know, Grant Fiesel's probably on there somewhere. I don't know, Joe Nash. So it's always surreal and always amazing. He's a great player and a great person. And Big Ray, how you doing this Wednesday?
I'm doing pretty good, man. You got to feel pretty good after a Seahawks win. It kind of sets the tone for the whole week. So
Yes.
like when they lose, you're constantly trying to figure out how do I make this sound good when it wasn't good, and all that kind of stuff. But when they win, hey man, it's all cherries and roses.
I gotta ask you because, obviously, I'm a fan, and my emotions do rise and fall a little bit with the team, right? As a player and now as like a person who works with the team, do you feel like your emotions rise, or is it just like it makes your job harder or easier?
A little bit of both. Like I don't normally carry it with me, like
Uh-huh.
throughout the week, but like on the day of the game or the night of the game, like I'll come home, I can't go to sleep until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because I'll just have to replay the game over in my head all the time, and then I can't wait for the film to pop up on the computer so I can go look at it again. And then Dave Wyman and I are the same. So we're up all night exchanging texts. Did you see this play? Why didn't he do this? Or why didn't they go over here? So that type of energy right after the game is really hard for me to put down. But then next day I'm pretty good, and I'm just trying to figure out like what can the Seahawks do to get a win or play better or to keep winning. So yeah.
It's so cool the relationship you and Dave have. Obviously, it seems like a lot of times offensive linemen, hang out with offensive linemen, or at least offensive players hang out with offensive players.
Yeah.
But you guys obviously played together, for the Seahawks, and you have this cool thing where Dave is a linebacker and has his perspective. You're an offensive lineman, and I'm curious, like, were you guys friends on the team and that continued, or did it kind of develop later when you guys kind of been covering the team here in
Yeah,
Seattle?
it developed later. Like obviously we were friends on the team, just because we were teammates. But I think I've only played with him for 1 year, and then he went to Denver, and then he became an enemy. And so we're trying to we would try to get at him every game. But then once we retired, we ended up coaching football together. So I was coaching football at Interlake High School, and we needed a defensive coach, and so I reached out to Dave, and he came and coached with us. And then when I went to Lake Washington, he was my defensive coordinator when I was a head coach. And so we spent a lot of time together just coaching kids and, trying to raise men and that type of stuff. And so there's a lot of things that when it comes to football and just, how to go about those types of things, we kind of have the same perspective on. And so, and then we're just like two old dudes that just can't go to sleep at night after games. And so we just sit back and just, hey, did you see this play? Check out this play. What do you think about this? Do you think the linebacker could have done that? Hey, what about the DK? Could he, and we just do that all night until we don't ever say like good night. It's all of a sudden the text just stopped. And then, and then that means one of us is falling asleep. But yeah, Dave's a good dude, and we have he has a really cool perspective on things. Smart guy, been around the game a lot, covered the game a lot, covered the Seahawks a lot, and so it's just kind of good to have someone to bounce some of that stuff off of.
Is there something that you've learned, about football from him, or just getting a defensive perspective that maybe you didn't know before?
I wouldn't say not as much. For me as an offensive lineman back in the day, like really you just learned the defensive fronts. Like you didn't really paying a whole lot of attention to like what was happening beyond a linebacker. But Dave kind of knew the whole defense. So just being around him, most of them were as coaches, and listening to him coach the defense and coach how, like obviously you had some idea like gap integrity and all this other kind of stuff, but the way he coached it, like you just had a different perspective on it because it's coming from a defensive coach. And so, we were talking about setting the edge way back when we were coaching at in like high school, because he would always tell the guys to be a traffic cop. So sometimes you don't get to make the tackle, but you got to get people going, the other direction so that the bad guys can come and get them. And so we had like little conversations like that that you kind of know as a football player, but not been on defense, you don't really understand how they emphasize it or what the technique is or this thing. Yeah.
So the Seahawks did get back on the winning side of the ledger, which is nice. Everything's better when the Seahawks win. What did you see on that game? What did that long text chain with Dave reveal for you after you guys watched that game?
Well, the thing there was the one thing I liked about the offense is that it just felt like offensive football. It didn't seem like they were trying to force the running game. It didn't seem like they were trying to, force the ball to any one receiver. It just felt like the plays were coming in the way that they should come. Whereas like the game before, when there was such an emphasis on like we're not running the ball, I remember I tracked the first 12 plays, then it was 6 runs and 6 passes, and it's just like trying too hard to kind of create the balance. But this game, it just felt natural. It felt like the flow of the game dictated, and he dictated how the offense was going to go. And it just, the runs came when they came and the passes came when they came, and it was really good. And I thought that the offensive line, playing 2 rookies on the right side, I never thought they put the 2 rookies in at the same time, but they did. And ended up scoring a touchdown, I think, on 1 or 2 of the drives. And I thought they played, tough. They just hung in there and played battle football. And then the one thing I really liked with the offense, especially, is that I think they set the tone early in the game that the coaches were not afraid. Like when you go on a 3-game winning streak, losing streak, it's easy to go into the next game feeling like, okay, let's just try to hold this in the road. Let's try to be conservative with how we play. Let's mitigate, turnovers and all this other kind of stuff. But they have said, no, the staff and the way they were calling the game was communicating to the players that we came to win, and we came to win big. And I think that was a big statement by Grubb and the coaching staff to the players to have 10 seconds left before the half and you throw a touchdown pass. Like most people, even us in the broadcast room, was going like, why aren't you just taking the points? Like just kick the field goal. Like you're going to run out of time. What, and then you score. It's like one of those, no. Yes. Good job. And,
yeah.
That's what we're doing. And so to me, that sent the message. And then on defense, the first half, the running game, they were gashing us a little bit, but they kind of got it corrected in the second half. You didn't see as many of those gap assignment problems in the second half. They did a really good job of shutting the running game down. And then like we'll see a video of Byron Murphy here in just a little bit, but Byron Murphy is a disruptor. Like he may not always make the play, but he disrupts a lot of stuff so that other dudes can make plays. And it was just really cool to see him healthy and doing, like I think the one play that we're gonna watch, it just epitomizes why people think so highly of this guy. Just this one play. If you saw that one play, you go like, okay, yeah, this, if you had any doubt, you go like, yeah, that's why they drafted this guy.
There is so much in what you said, and I'm going to try to pick them one off of parts. I think first, people are dying to hear what you thought of Mike Jerrell's first start, and I think I'll just share a little bit here, Ray, in that I think people need to be realistic about Mike Jerrell and also who he's going up against in this game relative to some of the competition that we've seen in the past. But I'm still hopeful. I'm still happy for the guy that he got out there. But I don't want to bias you. So, like, what did you see from Mike Jerrell?
Yeah, I think yesterday I was just telling some people they just need to pump the brakes a little bit because yeah. he survived the game. I'll put it that way. If you know offensive line play, obviously I played. I can just tell by his body language that he wasn't overwhelmed by the moment or anything like that. But he wasn't like it's like. When the pitcher, I don't follow baseball a lot, but I do know this. If they say the pitcher's aiming the ball versus throwing the ball, like that, like it was like that type of, you might not be able to, it's just a little bit of a nuance where you can tell like, man, he's not really going for it. He's not really going for that fastball. Maybe he's thinking he can't keep it in the zone and stuff like that. Or if you're a heavyweight boxer and you're a big puncher and you're going against a really good counter puncher, you're a little bit hesitant, like to like throw that straight right, because you might have something coming back at you. And so I think he kind of played that way. He wasn't really committed to finishing blocks. He wasn't really committed to finishing a play. It was like almost like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Now let me just hang on and survive till the whistle blows. And that's no disrespect to him. Just the dude's a 6th-round draft pick from a Division III school, and now you're playing with the real big boys for real. Like it's hard to explain to people how the speed of the game and intensity of the game increases from practice to preseason games to regular season games to playoff games. You can't imagine when you get to the playoffs, you go like, there's no way in the world a person can run harder or play, run faster or play harder, but somehow they do, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like a lot of people all over the place. But no, I thought that obviously he hung in there, he battled. That his technique wasn't the greatest. There's a couple, 3 or 4 plays where he just totally missed dudes. He's laid off the ball, one time, but he did battle. And, and I wouldn't say like, hey, this dude is going to be the starter for the rest of the year unless all those other tackles are injured. But because I think even if Stone is healthy, you're probably going to put Stone back in there. If George is healthy, he'll be back in there. And obviously, if Abe Lucas is healthy, it's Abe's job to lose. But I thought he battled, and that's good. And like I said I think I tweeted out, it's some good coaching film. There's a lot that Huff can use to go like, okay, like you survived the game. Now let's do some things the right way, and then let's play the way that we need you to play.
All those things made sense, Ray, except when you said Stone would still play if he came back. Tell me why you think Stone Forsythe is still a better option than Mike Jerrell based on what you saw.
Well, I think his size is one thing, and I think the confidence that he was playing with is another thing. And he's a big dude; he takes up a lot of space. I thought he was doing pretty. I thought he did a decent job in the run game when he had a chance. And then even though he's given up pressures and things, he went against some of the best pass rushers and didn't give up sacks. And so I don't care what people say about the pressure stats and all that stuff. Those dudes get paid to get sacks. You don't see the highest paid pass rusher in the league being the dude with the most pressures. It's the dude with the most sacks. And so when it's cool. Like I think, what was it? Coach McDonald said the other day, if you torture the numbers enough, that it'll tell you anything you want to know. And sometimes we torture them so much that we don't understand that some of that is just part of the game. Like like there was a play where Geno stepped up in the box and threw a touchdown pass on before half, and there was some pressure off the side, and so they're like, oh man, like the kid gave up the pressure right here or whatever. But that's part of it. That's one reason I have the one shot in there about the pocket. It's because you want the pocket wide enough and deep enough that the quarterback can manipulate the pocket. You don't want to expect him to stand in one spot and then throw from there. They're going to step up, step to the side. They got to find angles to throw the football. So it's just all part of it. So pressure is not always a bad thing. And some quarterbacks are great against pressure. They want pressure because then they tend to play better. And so I think sometimes you just crunch the numbers too much, and it doesn't always tell the whole story. And I thought Stone, for being like the third, tackle, was before he got nicked up, was finding some things that he was doing well.
Any thoughts on? Are you seeing any progress on the guard play? Is that getting any better?
The thing that was good is my eyes didn't go right to the guard spot during the game and during the video, rewatching. I thought Bradford did a decent job, run blocking. I think he did a better job pass blocking. I think Williams is starting to really kind of, as the center, is really starting to find his groove. I think at the beginning of the season, you could tell he hadn't played in a while. His balance and things were not right, and but it seems like he's kind of getting back into his groove. And then Tomlinson, I thought, for what it was, they all did decent jobs. And you can look at the grades and all that kind of stuff, but just from where they were, I think this is a good game for them to feel good about themselves, about some of the things they did.
That's good to hear. A couple other things, and we'll get to the film that everyone's eager to see. You said something that also stood out to me. A couple things. One was it was nice to see the offense just look like a normal offense and not forcing things. And I think we all felt that way about the 49ers game. It was like, come on, Ryan Grubb. Yes, you were told that you need to run the ball more, but don't just force down the throat. He said something interesting that I'll just share with folks that might have missed it. We asked about that a little bit in the week that followed, and he said that there was a stat that they were aware of, which the 49ers run defense really blew up in the second half, but that it was really good in the first half. And so their takeaway was that you really had to stay committed to the run to wear them down, and then you'd get to it in the second half. And so that made me feel at least a little bit better, that it wasn't just this silly, like, we need to run more, and so we're going to run more. Right. But there was at least a little logic to why they were doing it. I still think it was a bad, It wasn't a great game plan, but at least that said something there. The other is the Byron Murphy comment. Like, this is a guy, right? I think everyone, you hope that he's this dynamic, disruptive playmaker, and he just shows up. He's one of the few guys I've seen where you don't necessarily always notice him during games, and then you see the video of him after games, and he is wrecking dudes. And it's like, why am I not seeing this during games? Like, but in no, either way, the fact that he's wrecking dudes is what matters. I'm hoping that we start to see a little bit more of that resulting in some of these game-changing plays.
Yeah, I think it will, because part of it too is, like, he's a rookie, so he's still learning the game and trying to figure out how his skill set fits in and all that kind of stuff. And there's still a lot of thinking through the game probably. But playing the defensive tackle spot, man, it's just really hard to get big numbers. So he's probably never going to have like a 10 tackle game kind of a thing. But he will have some hits on the quarterback that might cause an interception, or you can have tackles for losses, sacks, like some sacks and that kind of stuff. I think what's the defensive tackle for the Giants that came in?
Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence. So Dexter Lawrence is having like the type of year, like an Aaron Donald type of year, where people starting to, like, I think the Athletic reached out and we're supposed to talk to them about comparing him to Cortez Kennedy's like MVP year, where Cortez had 14 sacks, which is unheard of, from the defensive tackle spot. But the other thing with what Murphy does, the problem is that the better he gets, then the more double teams and stuff he gets. And it's really hard, man, to defeat double teams and finish plays because you work so hard to get off the double team, as opposed to like a defensive end who mostly it's hard to double team them, only in pass, in the passing game you can. But a lot of times you get singled up, even though you might be the best player in the field, you still can get singled up and find some things to do. But this dude is a special player. And I'm not going to lie, like, coming into it when they drafted him, I had my own doubts, because I'm just like, man, like, he's a good football player, but God, the size, like, just don't know, man, how, like, there's only one Aaron Donald, you know what I'm saying? But not saying he's Aaron Donald, but he's proven to me that this dude can make things happen in his own ways. Quick, powerful, fast, leverage, can close on the play, finish the play. So I was super impressed with how he played. I'm just like you, like, after the game, you go like watching the film, like, oh man, like, he was like getting pressure on the quarterback right there. Oh man, he pushed the double team back into the running back right there. It's just like little things that don't show up on the stat box that he's getting done.
My favorite comparison for Byron Murphy, everyone talks about Aaron Donald, and then there's some people that talk about Grady Jarrett. Ed Oliver's another one who's coming to town this week with the Bills. Do you remember Geno Atkins for the Bengals?
Oh, yeah.
Shorter, strong as a bull dude, and he was just a terror inside. He's a wrecking ball. And I think you've talked about John Randall before, right? I really think Byron Murphy. It's exciting to see the Seahawks have found another difference maker with their first round pick. The guy's only 22. He's 22.
And if you can keep Leonard Williams healthy and keep that rotation of him and Reed, and now you have the Robertson Harris kid, like having more than one dude that they have to think about on the D line, it's just going to make his job all the easier,
Yes.
Or he's going to demand so much attention that a guy like Big Cat can have like a Pro Bowl, All Pro type season.
They got to be on the field in order to figure out how to play together. So I 100% agree. Let's go ahead and start everyone's favorite part of the show, which is to look at some film with you and get what stuck out to you. And this is an early running play from the Seahawks. Anything you want me to point out before I start playing it?
The only thing is that Ryan Grubb at the beginning of the season was saying, one of the reasons they didn't go to the running game is because the offensive linemen weren't moving people. And this is not like college where you get to drive guys 6-7 yards off the football. And my comment was, well, for K9, you just got to get a hat on a hat and then let him make it right. And if you see this play, at least at the offensive line and the tight end all had a hat on a hat, and then K9 made it right. And that's the type of player that he is. And I just thought, I say that a lot. And if you watch, so sometimes if you stop the film, let me see, like right as he starts to cut back, I think, right, one more time, right, one more, right there, right. Every single guy in the box has a hat on a hat. And so you're not necessarily getting vertical push, but you are covering guys up and you're getting this horizontal push. And so then now K9 can see the flow of the defense. And then with his cutback ability, he can use that to overflow against him. And it reminds me of when I got to Detroit and I couldn't figure out why Barry sometimes would cut back and sometimes he wouldn't. And so one day, that's when we had the still shots. We didn't have the video like they have on the sideline. But one day I took the video over to him, the still shot, and said, Barry, like, what is it that you're looking at that's making you cut the ball back? And he goes, well, early in the game, I just try to stay front side and see if they're flowing, how fast the defense is flowing. If they're flowing really fast, then I know that the second half of the second quarter, I can start cutting things back. If they're playing it slow, then I know I can stay on the front side and hit the front side. So you get this little bit of information that helps you understand how the running back is seeing the game. And so with K9, he's the type of dude, just don't let there be a free runner in the backfield or at the point of attack. If everybody's covered up, they just have a hat on the hat, the dude will make it right. And it'll make everything so much better. And so on this play, like everybody in that box, the tight ends, the linebacker, the offensive line, and even JSN coming into the box was going to have a hat on a hat. And that's what you need for K9 to be an effective runner. You don't necessarily need to drive guys 5 to 6 yards off the ball. You've got to cover them up and let K9 do what K9 does.
One of the things that makes that to really illustrate your point here, Anthony Bradford going against Grady Jarrett, and he yields some ground, right? Jarrett's pushing him back, but to your point, he's on him. Like he's not letting him be a free runner. He's not swimming around him and swallowing K9. And that gives K9 enough space to be able to scoot out the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. And K9 is a cutback runner. That's kind of like his style. He's not necessarily a dude that just kind of goes to the front side and just goes to the whole assignment. Unless it's a gigantic hole, he does that. But he's a cutback runner, and so you just got to cover dudes up. And if you do that consistently, the guy's going to have big runs and make big plays. And because the one thing when you hit the free runner, that's when he gets those negative yards, because then he has to totally it's a difference between reversing field and cutting back.
Yep.
Reversing field means like, oh, that's trouble. Let me, turn all the way around and get back the other way. Cutting back means that you're attacking the front side hole and then you're just kind of rolling to the back side. And so K9 is really good at that. So you just got to get guys covered up.
So this is the throw to DK Metcalf. I'll go ahead and play this and can play it a few times. You can tell us what you see.
Yeah, and so the reason I put this in, I wanted to see this one right after the run play, is because that throw to DK across the middle there, it won't come open if the running game's not working, because those linebackers will just get depth. But because of the way they had started out running the ball, just that little bitty fake of putting the ball in K9's stomach, and then you have a little bit of play action, look from the offensive line. The one linebacker over to the right has to follow K9, and then the other linebacker on lower at the bottom of the screen, he should be getting depth, but he is like watching the running back, and so that allows DK to get right behind him into that wide open space. And I mean, that's what you see guys killing us with, and because they've been running the ball well, and this is how we kind of return the favor because we've been able to run the football. You have two guys on the other side clearing out so that DK can run that underneath route, and you're hoping that those linebackers are going to bite down on the run enough to give him that space right there. And we've seen teams do that against us a lot, and you slam your hat on the table, and you're like, oh my gosh, like where to catch the linebackers, look up but when you're running the football, it has that impact on that second level defender.
That's what I'm laughing about, man. I like how many times we're like, that is their best receiver. How can he be that open? That makes no sense. You know, it's nice to see it the other direction. I felt like the Seahawks had a few situations like that in this game where, maybe there's a pass interference penalty that got picked up by the refs, or, there was a late hit, roughing the passer on a third down that was an incompletion and your drive gets extended. Like, we never seem to get that. It's always the other way. So got a few of those in this game.
I mean, for DK to be that wide open, it's like, something like, it wasn't just a blown assignment. It was like part of them going like, oh, is he going to run the ball again? Because the last time they were in that formation, he cut it back to where this linebacker is.
Ray, we got to stop for a second. We're going to come back to this. Getting reports that the Seahawks have made a trade.
Oh, wow.
Getting reports that the Seahawks have made a trade. I'm going to verify that this is accurate, but it appears to be. The Seahawks have traded Jerome Baker and a 4th-round pick to Tennessee for Ernest Jones. The linebacker that was with the Rams and was traded to the Titans this year. He played with Bobby Wagner down there, has been a very good linebacker. He's a younger player. We're going to get back to your tape. Don't worry. I know everyone wants to, but we got to talk about this real quick. I'll tell you a little bit more about Ernest Jones here in a second. Ray, this gets back to what you've been saying about the linebacker play and about these guys hitting gaps. Jerome Baker, for whatever reason, he's a 1-year deal. They decided not to keep him. Ernest Jones is 24 years old. He's going to turn 25 in November. He was a 3rd-round pick out of South Carolina. He's 6'2", 230. And he has made a career being a better run defender. If whatever you feel about PFF grades, at least it's relative. He was 78.8 graded player against the run in 2022. He was 86.2 in 2023. So far this year, he's 68.4. Anything above 60 is considered, above average. Above 80 is considered like Pro Bowl. 90 is like all pro. So he was a very, very good run defender. He also is a good blitzer. So he had 37 pressures last year and 6 sacks as a inside linebacker. That's not an outside linebacker. That's an inside linebacker. So this is a guy that I think wanted some big money from the Rams. They chose not to give it to him. A little bit of a red flag that he's been traded twice in one season. But interesting that Mike Macdonald makes a deal with Denard Wilson, with the Titans, and Denard Wilson used to be working for Mike Macdonald. They run the same scheme, so they've been able to see Ernest Jones in the Titans scheme, and they said, yep, we want to bring you over to help this team. Any initial reactions to this move?
Well, the thing that I like about it is sometimes, as a new staff and things, you try to stay committed and convicted by your choices, and sometimes you get stubborn and you don't want to, you get too loyal to what you brought with you, and so sometimes it's hard to kind of back off of that and go like, hey, maybe we may have like tripped up right here, or we need to improve that player spot, but it's hard to pull the trigger. And so it was good to see them go like, okay, like we've seen enough of this. We've seen enough of this play. We need to upgrade that position, and to be able to go find someone in the middle of the season to trade with to get a person that could possibly upgrade the position. To me, it speaks again to two different things. Like, they are playing to win, and they want to win right now. They don't want to win like next year or halfway through the season next year. They want to win right now, and and it also sends a message to the locker room that you got to get the things, you got to get it done right. You got to do what we're asking you to do. You got to play to your ability and to your expectation. And if not, there's a chance that you can roll out. Early in Pete Carroll's career, it was that way. Like Pete Carroll and John Snyder. I remember one year, I think 2 years in a row, I think they had the most transactions of any of all the teams, like by far, where they were just bringing guys in, bringing them out, bringing them in, bringing them out, and to try to find the dudes that were going to be part of the culture and part of the success of the team. And it seems like they've seen enough of Baker and want to upgrade that position, and so they made this move.
It's interesting, they trade Baker and a 4th-round pick. Both Baker and Jones are on the last years of the deal. Baker signed a 1-year deal with Seattle. Jones is in the last year of his rookie deal. He'll be an unrestricted free agent next year. The only reason you do this is if you're kind of auditioning. John Schneider's talked about this. He likes to kind of get guys on 1-year deals or get guys in the midseason and get them in the room, see how they do, see how they feel, and maybe convince them that they'll want to re-sign here. Maybe like this whole season feels like an audition for Mike McDonald looking at every player. And like one of the things I've been curious about, Ray, you have some insight on this as a coach, not just as a player, is how do you evaluate when the situation's the player versus when it's the scheme or the coaching? Like, can it be coached out of the, can it be coached to better play, or is this guy just doesn't have it and it's not a good fit? Any thoughts?
Well, when I coached at Lake Washington, and when I started coaching high school football, and this is the way I would approach the whole thing, is like if I heard a coach yelling at a player a lot, then I would go like, oh man, something's not working over there. And so I talk to the coach first and go like, hey, what's happening? Oh man, I keep telling him to step to the right and he steps to the left, or I keep telling him to rip like this and he does a swim over or whatever. And I go, okay, well then can you find a different way to coach it? Like I put the pressure on the coach to come up with a different way to coach it, because I don't want you just screaming and yelling at guys, because that's not coaching. And so then after a coach has tried 2 or 3 different ways to coach it to you and you can't do it, then to me that person just can't do it. So then it's time to find somebody else to give it another try, because yelling, the louder, you've tried several different ways to communicate to them what you're asking to do, coaching it, drills, all this film study, all this other kind of stuff. At some point you just go like, maybe this player just can't do what we're asking them to do, and then that's when you have to move on. And so that's one of the things I was saying early when doing this 3-game losing streak, is that with the complexity that they want to play with on defense, maybe the dudes can do some of the things, but they can't do all the things. So then when you start to layer things on, then it starts to show like, man, this guy may not be able to do all the things that we're asking him to do. Maybe he can do these one thing well, but he can't do these 4 or 5 things well. And we need him to do the 4 or 5 things well. And so then that means you got to find another player to kind of to see if they can do it. And that seems to be the case right now, is that, like you said, they're auditioning dudes. Like, can they do the things that we need them to do? Like all the things, not just some of the things, but can they do all the things that we need them to do for the defense to be successful?
Well, there's going to be a group of Seahawks fans are going to be like, man, why don't you just re-sign Jordan Brooks? Like, he's a damn good linebacker. You drafted him. You spent a 1st-round pick on him. Now you signed Jerome Baker to a 1-year deal for roughly pretty close to what Jordan Brooks is making every year. And now you trade a 4th-round pick and Jerome Baker to get another linebacker. It's like, you could have just signed Jordan Brooks. John Schneider at the time said we were focused on Leonard Williams. We couldn't make the deal for Jordan Brooks until we finished the Leonard Williams negotiation, and Miami just moved faster. And that's, that might be just the way things had to work, but the Seahawks are chasing it now. I mean, there's no way to spin this, Ray. Like, when you sign a guy to 2 linebackers to 1-year deals, you get rid of all your linebackers, and then you trade a 4th-round pick and one of those linebackers for another linebacker. You're searching.
Well, I mean, there's another way to look at it too. Like, things may have moved fast and they were focused on Leonard Williams. But also, too, like that staff had watched the film. They knew what Jordan Brooks was capable of. They probably had an idea of how he fits into their system, and maybe they didn't really see him fitting into what they wanted to do. I mean, you can. It may not be apples to apples, just because they both played linebacker and they're making the same amount of money, and doesn't mean that they didn't look at the film and go like, hey, because you're never going to say this. If we can get him back, great. But if we don't, it's not that big a deal, because I felt like if it was a priority to have Jordan Brooks, they would have figured out a way to have Jordan Brooks. If it's a dude that you absolutely want on your team, you're not going to leave a window, especially people like John Snyder, where they do tons of transactions. So they know the rhythm of that, the speed of that, all that kind of stuff. And so they know that if this is a guy we absolutely wanted, Jordan Brooks would be here. You know what I'm saying? So there could have been that they saw something in the film that just said, like, I don't, that's not the type of dude we want, or where he struggles with that thing or whatever it is. I don't know what it was. It could have been, but you're gonna put a face on it where you can just, you're not trying to crush the dude in the media and all that kind of stuff. You never know how the world works. He might come back to you, but I think there's more to it than just, things move too fast. So that there could have been some evaluation in thinking that that's not the type of dude that they wanted in that position. So,
yeah, well, it also, like, John Schneider's track record, Ray. I mean, you made some great points about how he thinks about things, and also the way he talks in the media to kind of be kind. When he makes a trade and he trades, I mean, a 4th round pick is not small potatoes.
Right.
Like, you just saw, Devontae Adams and, Mark could go for like 3rd round picks, like big name players. The 4th round pick is a big deal. DeAndre Hopkins just got traded from the Titans this morning for a 5th round pick. When he does that, he wants that player generally to be part of the future. Like Leonard Williams, when they traded a 2nd and a 5th round pick last year, then they had to spend $21.5 million a year on him. Like, they weren't going to let him go partially because they didn't want to, like Jamal Adams. When they make these deals, they generally want him. So Ernest Jones, I think, is pretty likely a guy they've identified that they want to be part of their future. Be kind of fascinating if he works out well, because the Rams could have kept him, and they're going to have to face him potentially twice a year. I don't know if you talked much to Jerome Baker. I got a chance to talk to him a little bit. He didn't seem super thrilled. And I don't know how much of that was during the point where the team was playing poorly and he was frustrated about that. But there's now been this this thread between the players the Seahawks have moved on from this year that I at least want to bring up. Mike Jackson, I don't think he wanted to be here. I don't think he wanted to be a backup corner. And even though people are like, why did you make that deal? You don't even have Michael Barrett anymore. I think they were going to not want Mike Jackson on the team, and they wanted him to be somewhere he could be a starter. Like, he wasn't necessarily fit. Darrell Taylor, I don't know that they really wanted him in the locker room. I don't know that he was a great fit for what they were doing. They've moved on. And I don't want to cast Jerome Baker or any of these guys as malcontents or problems. But if you're not loving it here, if you're not thriving here, it might be just a sign that they're trying to protect this young nucleus and make sure that they got the right guys in the room with the right attitudes as they're coming together. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but it's just something that comes to mind.
Well, I mean, team building is more than just, what you do on the football field, off the field, the way you carry yourself, the way you engage teams. I've been the team captain on every team I've ever played on. And so
I believe that.
And so there's more to it than just what guys do on the field. And you have to have some connectedness, to, not that everyone has to be like kumbaya, sitting around the fire and all that kind of stuff, but there has to be a rhythm and a connectedness to the locker room that goes beyond just what you do on the football field. One of the most connected teams I've ever played on was the 2-14 Seahawks my first year. Our defense was amazing. Our offense was terrible, one of the worst in the league ever. And but it was a really tight team. There was no finger pointing. There was always just encouragement. People, Eugene Robinson was like one of our big captains and just super positive dude all the time. You could tell that the defense would be frustrated at times, but they never kind of went off on the offense, at least not in our faces. But there is more to team building, and I don't want to say anything about those dudes either, as far as it relates to like their attitude or whatever. But sometimes like it's just not a good fit for whatever the reason is. It could be the playing style, it can be the attitude, it can be the that you can't mitigate the weakness that they do have. If you can't figure out a way to make, even if it's a good player and you can't figure out how to make it work with what you do, then that's a reason to move on from a player. So I don't want to speculate about anybody's attitude or personality or any of that kind of stuff. Only thing I will say is that it's an indication to me that the Seahawks want to win right now. This is not a rebuilding year. This is not a take a step backwards to take 2 steps forward year. This is a year where they really feel like if they can capture what it is that they need, I think they feel like they can make a run to the playoffs. And then the other thing too is that the one thing about this defense, like after having such great leaders here for so long, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Sherm, all those dudes, like big personalities that you knew for sure when things weren't quite going right, like you could go like, oh, let me watch Bobby on the sideline. Oh, let me see how Bobby's talking to the defense. With this defense, you don't have that person yet. Like, I don't know who the person is. I know like Big Cat has a lot of energy, like when he's playing good and all that kind of stuff. But when the crap hits the fan, what's the voice in that room? I have no idea who the voice is in the defensive room. Is it Julian Love? And Julian Love is a more laid back, do it on the behind the scenes type of leader. He's not a kind of in your face, grab you by your throat and go, we got to go do this type of leader. And a lot of times those type of dudes come from that linebacker spot. And so I don't know if the linebackers don't feel like they were playing well enough to kind of take charge of the defense that way. But they certainly do. And I don't know much about this Ernest Jones guy, but if he's a type of dude that can command attention and respect in the defense, and maybe that type of leadership is something that they need. Not everybody's built to be a leader, like the leadership is like, and this is a whole nother topic we can have, but leadership is one of the most misused words and misunderstood things in our country. Like it's all gifted by title and achievement, and that doesn't necessarily make you a leader. So,
we could have a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we could have a lot of fun having that conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to have a bonus episode sometime and talk about that. I 100% agree. Leadership's different. And while you were talking about that, it jogged a memory for me about Ernest Jones. So on one hand, you've got these signals that aren't good, that the Rams drafted this guy. He was playing well for them. And they chose not to extend him, and they traded him at the end of camp. It was weird. Like, it just didn't look good. Mm-hmm. And then the Titans trade him. So that also not necessarily, like, if someone's really good, you don't generally trade him. So that doesn't look good. But on the other side on the ledger, Aaron Donald, when he retired, I don't know if you heard this, Ray, but he said, Ernest Jones, this is your defense now. And so what does that say when the clearly best player on that team, the clear leader of that defense, anoints a guy? I think that probably shows a little bit of maybe he has a little bit of what you're looking for. I'm going to have to reach out to Bobby Wagner and get his take on Ernest as well, since I played with him. But what do you think that could mean?
I mean, it could mean that that's the amount of respect that the guy has in the locker room and on that defense, because if I'm retiring and I'm going to mention someone's name, I'm saying it for a reason. Like, they've earned the right for me to say something about them. I'm not just going to say it just because it's like I can't figure out words to say. So, hey, let me just talk about Ernest Jones. And so there's something about his play or his presence in the locker room or on that defense that moved Aaron Donald enough to make that comment. And so you can't just kind of push that under the rug, sweep that under the rug. You have to listen to it. And then also balance it, with why they didn't re-sign him, and then why is he getting traded again? And so I don't know much about the guy, but you never know what some of these situations is. Maybe it's a finance thing that why he had to leave, the Rams or whatever, or maybe it just got toxic in the negotiations and it just wasn't going to be able to repair that kind of stuff. And then with the Titans, they're probably trying to gather some draft picks to kind of, to move their team along. And so you never know what the situation is. What you hope is that whatever it is that maybe those red flags, that there's a reason for the red flags, and you feel like those reasons can be resolved here with the Seahawks.
One more point on this. I want to get back to the last couple plays we're going to watch that you're going to break down for us from the Falcons game. There's also this little echo that comes to mind with this, which is Mike Macdonald. And you don't want to make everything about what happened before and history repeating itself, because, it's not always the case. But I do think paying attention to patterns matters. And Mike Macdonald, what does he do? He comes in as defense coordinator of the Ravens, plays about 8 games, says, we need an inside linebacker. They go out. The Ravens make a trade for Roquan Smith, bring him in. He is kind of the final piece of the puzzle, at least for that team, and helps them take a step forward. Mike Macdonald played 7 games had coached 7 games with the Seahawks, kind of saying, we don't have the right linebackers. I don't think you can say Ernest Jones is Roquan Smith. That's unfair to Ernest Jones. Roquan Smith is, if not the best inside linebacker in football, he's right there with Fred Warner or some of those guys. But it is interesting timing, first season, halfway through, and the position that Mike Macdonald, who was a linebackers coach at heart, where he is deciding he wants to upgrade the team.
Yeah, it sounds like it's go time. That's what it sounds like. It's like we're ready. You're in first place. Even with the 3-game losing streak and stuff, and so you're still in a good spot. Still a big meat of your season to go, and you know that you're going to need the best possible players you can get, playing at their best possible ability to give yourself a chance. As you go through the rest of the season, and so. There probably is something to it. I think he's seen enough of all the players, I think, now to have a really good idea how they fit into what he wants to do, how they fit into the culture, if they can learn what you need them to do, if they can do the things you need them to do. And so it feels about right to go like, okay, we've seen enough film of people, and here's some places where we can upgrade. So where's the place that we can get some movement? And it seems like they found movement in that spot. And I would say Dotson to me still leaves a little bit to be desired. He played better. He still has this habit of trying to run behind double teams. If the ball's running to his left and he's coming from the right side and he tries to run behind the double team, on the backside, he hasn't gotten there yet. And he did it once or twice in this game too. And so there's still some things that need to be corrected with him. But hopefully, with Ernest Jones coming in, having played in the defense, he's familiar with it, has a little better grade against the run game and things like that. So hopefully that will have an immediate impact on the defense in a way that you're not waiting to the second half to stop the bleeding in the run game.
Yeah, interesting point there about Dodson. I think a lot of folks might have thought between the two of them, maybe Dodson's had more problems than Baker. Dodson is the opposite in terms of all the energy from him has been stepping forward, stepping up, happy to be here, owning his issues. And I don't know, I don't know how much that matters for this, but it might. It might, yeah. If you've got a guy that really clearly wants to be here and but
the only thing I will say is sometimes we don't get to. The only way we can make some of those assessments is either you're in the locker room and you see it that way as a player, but when some dudes are just not comfortable talking to people that aren't teammates, so their energy level might be at a different place when they're doing interviews or at the podium. Maybe they have some anxiety around being in front of people, things like that. When I played in Detroit, Barry Sanders very rarely did any interviews or talked in front of the team, even though he and I were the team captains. And so I would go to Barry and say, hey, Barry, what do you want me to tell the team? Because they're not going to listen to me. And so I would get up and say, hey, Barry wants us to do da 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 da. Barry said, because Barry just wasn't that guy, which is interesting to see him all over social media now and doing commercials and stuff. He just wasn't a dude that when you put the camera in his face that he was going to have a whole bunch of energy and give you a whole bunch of words for an answer. And so you can't always just judge like a person's love of the area or desire to be here or enjoyment to be here based off their demeanor when they're in front of a camera doing interviews.
It's a good call out. That's a good call. All right, let's get back to looking at some of the plays from the Falcons, and I may have some more talk. We'll certainly have Real Hawk Talk tonight at 6, but we might have some more talk about the trade coming up. But let's pull these back up. We just watched the DK play. Let's go ahead and take a look at a play against the Falcons that you really liked the pocket on this one.
Yeah, so like if you can stop it, like right there. So like right here. So a lot of times, when you talk about the pocket, everyone's like the pocket. Well, the pocket is literally like the pocket on the pair of jeans, like your back pocket. And so the guard, the two guards in the center are responsible for creating the depth of the pocket, which you can see here. There's a good 7 yards or 5 or 6 yards between the defenders and Geno in the depth. And then the tackles create the width of the pocket. And so now you have a couple good yards of width on both sides of the quarterback. And ideally, like that, like when you start doing all the PFF stuff about pressures and all that kind of stuff, they're judging that on, okay, if this is the ideal pocket, then how is that pocket being manipulated and threatened by the defender? Because this would be the ideal pocket. So I don't know where they then say how close a dude has to be to the quarterback before it to be a pressure, or if they got to touch him or hit him or whatever it is. But that is, to me, that is like when you start talking about, well, how does Geno play in the pocket, and the pocket is collapsing in the pocket. I don't know if people really understand the whole dynamics of the pocket, but this is a perfect example of it, where there's depth and there's width, and even when that pocket is tighter, Geno does a very good job of manipulating that space. And so right here, I mean, like he must have felt like he was on vacation or something with this pocket, because it was so big. But when you start looking at those Pro Football Focus grades, they're determining how is this pocket being infiltrated by the defense, and then coming up with a grade around the pressure part of it. But ideally, that's what you want in a pocket for a quarterback to be able to step up in, and that's a great. Geno is a step up and throw pocket passer, can manipulate the pocket that way. More like that. You've seen less of it this year. Last year, he would try to do the Russell Wilson and spin out and lose 10 yards to try to gain 5 yards, that kind of stuff. He's not that type of player. He's better having a pocket like this where he can step up and then slide left to right and then make a throw. And so I just wanted to demonstrate just to the audience when we talk about a clean pocket and what an ideal pocket is. That's what it looks like when it's done right, perfectly. If I would say there's a little late pressure right there off of Jerrell, but for the most part, that's what the pocket looks like when it's clean.
And I see some people in chat saying, "Oh, he missed open players in the middle of the field." This was at the end of the half. They were trying to get out of bounds, so that's why he's looking to the sideline. So Geno did fine there. All right. What's interesting about that is I used to do this clinic for the Seahawks called Football 101. And we would bring people in. We would take them to meetings. We'd watch film with them and all this stuff. And we'd always get these people like, oh, man, like this dude was wide open. He went right across the field. He missed him. And then we would go down on the field. And I'd say, okay, now you're the quarterback. And now you have all these people, all these hands and bodies all around you. And you have 2 seconds to get the ball out. And then you're going to tell me that you're going to see all of the open people? Like, it's just impossible. The game happens so fast. You know what I'm saying? And then, like, honestly, having the all 22 in slow motion has ruined it for quarterbacks, because everyone goes like, well, why didn't you throw it to this guy? Why didn't you throw it to that guy? It's like, as a pass blocker, if I can keep you off the quarterback for 2.5 seconds, like 2.5, 3 seconds, that's a long time. But that goes like this, and the quarterback is having to read the defense, avoid the rush, see all these hands in his face, and then deliver a pass. And then so when people watch the film and go like, oh, you missed this dude, missed that guy. It's like, come on, dog. Like, it's just not that easy, bro. This is not Madden, you know. Great insights from Ray Roberts. All right, last one that you had for us on this one. This is the Byron Murphy play. This is also a Roy Robertson Harris play, by the way. So talk to us about what you see here, Big Ray.
Well, the main thing that I see right here is that it's really hard to defeat double teams. It really is. Like, you have to be a really special player to be able to do that. And if you look at where Byron Murphy started on the hash, and he went probably a yard or two inside the hash to beat this double team, and then came back and made the tackle on the hash. Like, that is like, that's really hard. That whole, just like if you were doing a drill with cones and said, hey, I want you to step, 3 steps to your left and then come back 3 steps to your right, and I want you to tackle this running back with no block. That would be hard to do. But he did that going between 2 blockers and then redirecting himself in a way to make the tackle, not just at the line of scrimmage, but for a loss. And I think Robertson Harris, obviously held the edge on that, but Murphy was going to make that play regardless. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what makes this dude so special. Like, I mean, it was like, man, like, I hate doing comparisons to players, especially great players, because then people go like, well, I thought he was going to be the next Aaron Donald. It's like, but man, that is Aaron Donald-esque type plays. Like sometimes his effort and stuff kind of reminds me of other people in his build, but the way he disrupts reminds me more of Aaron Donald, because you have to figure out, how do we keep this double team, and how do we keep this dude out of the backfield? How do we keep him off the quarterback? How do we keep him from, disrupting the running play, whether it's on the front side or the back side? You can't single block him, like all these different kinds of things. That's what makes this dude special. And if he can stay healthy and can play alongside Big Cat and those edge rushers where you have to try to figure out who to double team, he's going to have his moments where he's singled up, and that's when he's going to destroy people. And that's where you'll see a lot of these big plays, sacks, fumble sacks, tackles for losses, that type of stuff. I think the numbers, it's like, when you go for it on 4th down and you don't get it, and people go like, oh man, see, you should have gone for it for 4th down. Then the data people say, yeah, but it was the right process. You got to trust the process, and it'll produce the outcomes eventually. And so to me, he's that type of dude. You just have to go, his process is all right. The way he's going about it, his approach to the game, the way he's attacking the offensive line, the way he's pursuing the football. There was a play, maybe it was last week or the week before, where he chased the play 20 yards down the field and got in on the tackle. So his processing is all right. And so the numbers will start to come. The plays will start to happen. Like in baseball on the infield, sometimes you go like, man, the ball just found the shortstop. The plays will find Byron Murphy, because he's putting in the work and he has a great process to do it.
Ray, a couple of things you said there, and I'm going to let you go because we're coming up on the hour. It's been great as always. But you mentioned the lateral agility here, going, off the hash and back across the hash. I don't know if you know his background, but he was a running back all the way until freshman year of high school. And he wanted to be a running back. Like, he's talked about how upset he was. His mom made him go to be play on defense. And he was so upset about it. And you see it. He actually even ran the ball for Texas against the Huskies in that playoff game. He scored a touchdown in that game. Yeah. But you see that kind of running back agility, even in this 300-pound man. And then the other piece here is, Mike McDonald talked about Byron. There's not a lot of guys that have the ability to not just take on double teams, but to split them. Right. And that's what it looks like, man. That's what split a double team looks like. And this isn't a bad offensive line that he was going against.
No, and as an offensive line, you work on double teams every single day.
Well, how many of these shows have we done where you're showing me, like, here's a defensive lineman double team. They're doing fine. They're kind of holding their spot, but this is on the linebacker or someone else. But we're never even like considering necessarily like, well, why isn't the defensive line even making a play here? Right. Here's Byron Murphy showing you that it's possible.
Yeah. And it takes a very special player, man. And like you said, there's some dudes that can hold up double teams and just let the linebackers run. There's other dudes that can just defeat the double team. And it's really hard to do. And this dude just has explosion, lateral explosion, vertical explosion. He's just a dynamic athlete for his build, or for anybody's build. And then plays like this, you'll start to see them more, because if the defensive line stays healthy and all those dudes can be healthy, the offensive line can't double team him every single time because you're going to have Big Cat doing his thing, Derek Hall doing his thing, Mafe doing his thing, Jaron Reed doing his thing from time to time. So you're going to have to be selective when you're double team all these different guys. And so he's going to have his moments where he's singled up. And I think he's going to be able to make a lot of big plays that way. And even right there, a lot of guys get hung up in the double team right there. And he was able to fight through it and be able to make the tackle.
One of the last thing I want to point out here. So Roy Robertson Harris, new guy. I watched a bunch of his film when he got traded for. He has this straight arm. He must have like 35-inch arms or something because he does this to so many offensive linemen where I've seen so many times where he actually curls them backwards without hitting them. You know, they get hands in the face and they start to, I'm talking about just in the shoulder where he knocks them backwards. And he's not a big playmaker, but man, you're right. Look at how he never moves backwards. And I think this team, like how many times we talk about the Seahawks just kind of getting washed down and not being that stout. I think he's just going to be a guy that's going to let other guys do their jobs better, you know?
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, some people are big guys and they're not super explosive, but they're just big and they take up space. Some dudes have the little, I always tell guys on offense and defense, you have to play with violent hands. And this dude plays with violent hands.
Yes.
Like when he puts his hands on you, it's like a 2-ton truck. It looks like, and so he has violent, heavy hands, and that's what allows him to do that. And he does a good job of extending, like not just through his arm, but also through his body, keeping his body, away from the player and getting good angles, with his body lean and things like that. And he's able to, hold dudes up. And so he's another guy where we'll say like, hey man, he is he doing any good? Like he doesn't have a whole lot of tackles, but he's creating in this situation. That's what Dave and I would call a traffic cop, and then the guy that made the tackle, you get up and you go straight to that dude and shake his hand. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for letting me get that. And so we would make our team at Interlake do that. Like if you was the traffic cop and somebody else made the play, we'd say the first thing you do when you get up off the field, don't do your whole personal celebration. Go pat that dude on the back, give him a high five or whatever, because that person did the dirty work, so you could do the glorified work. And so he's doing a really good job of that on this play right here.
Yeah, I just was showing this real quick, which is like this is their left tackle. I think it's Jake Matthews. Look at the angle of his body before, and then watch what happens.
Yeah,
as soon as he gets his
snaps it right up. Yeah,
I mean. That's what this guy does. He does it and God dang, man, I'm so ready for the Seahawks to have a physical advantage. And I think that, John Schneider, Mike McDonald, they invested a first-round pick in a defensive tackle. They invested $21.5 million in Leonard Williams. They, brought back Jaron Reed. They signed Ernest Jones. They, traded for Roy Robertson Harris. You got to feel them. And I think that's a great play to illustrate where you can start to feel them on this team.
And I think too, it's like the Detroit Lions. Like I swear, when you look across the field, this team wants to be the Detroit Lions in their toughness, their mental toughness, all that. And when you listen to the Lions, they purposely went out and found dudes that other teams may not have wanted, or made think like, well, why did they get this guy? It's because they fit the culture. They fit what they wanted to see on the field, the physicality, the toughness mentally, the toughness physically, the ability to do stuff like that, And so I think that'll be interesting to watch as they go along, is like the types of dudes they're bringing in, and whether they're big names or you're trying to figure out, scratching your head, why did they bring that guy in? Maybe he doesn't have all the stats and stuff, but he might have the right demeanor, saying that he might have the right approach to the game that fits what they want to get done. Because in Detroit, there was a few offensive linemen that they signed that you go like, man, like why they sign that dude? But they're dudes that you want to put in the foxhole with you, because they're gonna go to battle, they're gonna go to war, they're not gonna give up easily, and all those types of things. And then you build an offense that kind of works around their strengths and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see, like, as you start to see them make these types of moves and really mold this team, like more than just what the ability on the field is, but like what is the mental approach, what is the approach to football that they're bringing.
Well, I think you and I see this very similarly, and man, a lot happened in that hour, Ray. A lot happened, and
that's what I'm here for, man.
This is the best. So every other week we get Big Ray Roberts. You got Big Ray's Garage Grind. Anything coming up there that people should know about?
Yeah, so I have we'll be back in the studio on Friday doing another podcast, and the focus is going to be on not necessarily the person that is struggling with the mental health, but the people around it that are having to help deal with it and live with it and those types of things. There's not a whole lot of help and resources for those individuals, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about how that support system showed up for me, and then the need for it based on some of the dudes that I was with at the therapy center that the NFL, the After the Impact program. So it's going to be that'll be the focus of it. Obviously, I always try to bring in something that's current event that's happening. So we'll find something about that. But that's going to be the focus of it, is the support system around the individuals that are having these mental health issues.
It is a fantastic show. I've learned a lot listening, and I'm so happy that you're the person doing it and that it's getting out there. I know it's helping. Ray said this before, if it helps one person, it is worth it. It's helped certainly more than that, and absolutely great stuff. And he also comes on this show and does great stuff. He goes on every show, everywhere he goes. It's great stuff. So make sure you follow him at Big Ray Roberts on Twitter. And Ray, thank you so much for coming aboard. For folks that are just tuning in, I'm going to record an emergency pod right after this one. We're going to close shop here. Going to bring in Jeff Simmons. We're going to talk about the trade a little bit more. So you got a little bonus episode coming. But Ray, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for coming on.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, Jeff.
All right, peace, everybody. This was episode 213 of Hawk Blogger Mornings, hour 2. I got a nice little super chat here from Aaron Alexander. Sorry, not sorry. Cool hat, though. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to close shop here. We're going to get the conversation started about the trade just with Jeff Simmons in just a minute. So hold on, and I will get that set up and be back with you. So keep an eye on the channel, and we will start that in just a moment.